welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. One of the things that we talk about a lot in the fall is fertility, but we also talk about soil amendments. One of those products that we talk a lot about is gypsum. There's many different things said about gypsum out there. Some of them are true, some of them are not. We'll talk about gypsum and if it would be the right fit for your farm.
Going into fall here, a lot of people are asking about nitrogen. How do I better manage my nitrogen to get higher yields, to do the right thing for the environment, and to save some money as well? We'll talk about all those things today.
You may need to save some of that money in order to control our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed later in the show. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about how many ears of corn can a combine harvest in a single day. And this kind of goes back to on the farm 100 years ago, let's say, when farmers would literally go hand pick every ear of corn. And even today, there are some contests out there. So if you're great at picking corn ears and you think you can beat everybody else, there are a handful of contests to try to determine who's the fastest in the country. But you know what? An actual working farm today doesn't make any difference because the farmer can't even come close to keeping up with what a combine can do out there. So today we want to run a little bit of math for you and show you how fast these combines can actually move through the field.
Okay, first of all, when you hear this number, it's going to be astronomical. It's tremendous how many ears of corn a combine can actually harvest in a single day. And I think about whenever we have kids come out to our farm, we have a lot of kids come out, tour the farm, especially at harvest time. They love to see the equipment running in the field. And the kids, it never fails. They always ask, can I have an ear of corn? And they look at that ear of corn like it's worth several dollars per ear. It's not. It's only worth several cents per ear at best. But still, you think, wow, that's a lot of ears. That must be a lot of dollars. It still doesn't amount to many dollars for farmers, but they can pick a lot of ears in a day.
Okay, so we'll just run some simple math to make this easy. Roughly, a farmer in our region of the country plants about 30,000 plants per acre. Okay, so it could vary a lot. It might be as low as 15,000. It might be as high as 45,000, but let's just use the figure of 30,000 plants per acre. Okay, then you say, well, how many acres can the farmer harvest in an hour? A lot of these good new combines, you can pretty easily get over 10 acres an hour, and even more than that in some cases, but let's just, again, for easy figuring, use 10 acres per hour. Okay, so if I've got 30,000 plants, they're going to provide roughly 30,000 ears. Yes, some of them might have 2 ears, but there might also be a plant here or there that doesn't have any. So you take 30,000 ears times 10 acres, that's 300,000 ears in the matter of an hour. Now, how good is the fastest you've ever done, Darren? If you've gone through a field and you've tried pulling ears off and shucking those ears, what do you think you could do?
Well, about, no, I could do about 20 ears per minute at best, and that would be completely booking it, never ever failing, just snap, throw, snap, throw, snap, throw.
20 sounds pretty fast.
That would be tremendous. And so if that's 20 per minute, that would be 1,200 per hour, would be about the fastest a human could do it.
Slightly slower than the 300,000 per hour
and you'd
that a modern combine can do.
You'd be worn out after doing 1,200 of those,
right.
Believe me.
Right, whereas you're just enjoying life in your nice combine cab as your combine does these 300,000. And this is the other thing too. Recently, we were driving down a gravel road and my son saw an old corn crib. And he goes, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, Zach, you know what? If you were my grandpa, you wouldn't just say, 'What's that?' You'd be filling that every single fall, and in some cases, maybe even by hand." Now, actually, they had these little elevators that would bring it up, but they'd fill these corn cribs with ear corn. I said, we just don't do that anymore. You might find a handful of guys that do that, other than seed production growers, of course, do. But today, what we're doing with that combine is not only picking the ears, we're shelling them off too. So we're accomplishing 2 jobs at the same time with that modern combine. So it's a tremendous tool. Yes, it costs a lot. Might even cost more than the house the farmer's living in, but the combine is a tremendously valuable tool, and now you can see why.
One thing you'd prefer not to run through your combine is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Regalia RX biofungicide activates a plant's natural defense system, limiting the effects of disease and improving overall plant health. Regalia RX complements your fungicide program to optimize yield and strengthen return on investment. Ask your retailer for Regalia RX today.
Presenting the new 2016 Apache sprayer. If you could save money and increase yield, why wait? Delaying change can cost you money.
It's phenomenal the return of investment it brings back. In my mind, a sprayer is the biggest return of investment you can bring back.
Apache owners apply in half the time of full type, apply when they want versus custom, and spend less than Hydrostat owners, not to mention less weight on their crops. Go ahead and compare. We hope you do. Visit etsprayers.com to locate a dealer and how to save with an Apache. Apache, now more than ever.
Dirty work pays. That is if your dirty work includes a Soil Max Gold Digger tile plow. Soil Max tile plows feature zero deflection technology. With the only tile plow factory paired with Ag Leader's IntelliSlope control system, you eliminate the need for grade calculations and lasers. So make your next investment in a Soil Max Gold Digger. Better yield, longer planting and harvest windows, better water management is all yours with Soil Max. Visit soilmax.com.
I trust Agro Liquid because I've seen the results and they're positive and they work on my farm, they work in my environment. When I started farming, we was farming around 125 acres and now we're up to around 1,700 acres. I think I was recognized as the Tennessee Young Farmer by being a leader in the community and also being innovative. I'm always looking for new products, but I got to make sure that those products are sustainable. I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and I would love for them to farm this land.
Working in agriculture over the past 3 decades, I saw a need for an accurate way to apply dry product to seed. That's where our Changing Times applicators come in. The CT applicator brush sifts powder into small particles, resulting in proper distribution. Quantities can be adjusted by the speed of the brush rotation. This allows for even and accurate distribution of product. Application at the time of planting can be used with any seed delivery system and saves farmers time, labor, and money. Remember, CT applicators for the Changing Times.
Your time is valuable. That's why you need a Hagie STS application system. Hagie STS products are designed for precision and efficiency, allowing you to make applications all season long with just one machine. Contact your Hagie rep today.
Over the last few years, we've gotten a lot of questions about gypsum. So today we want to discuss what exactly is gypsum, what can it do for you on your farm, and should you be using it in your operation?
Well, it certainly makes sense to look at gypsum when you think of what it actually is. It's calcium sulfate. And when you look at the nutrients that our crops need, yeah, the NPK gets a lot of attention, and rightly so. But the next biggest nutrients we need are calcium and sulfur. And here you go. In gypsum, you've got both of those nutrients. And when I look at farms across the country, it seems like almost everybody is short in one of the two, if not both of them. So calcium sulfate obviously is a product many consider.
Okay, what will gypsum do though exactly out in your soil? Some people think, oh, it's going to dramatically change my soil pH. Well, no. Gypsum is really not a soil pH changing product. If you need to raise your pH, if you've got a low pH, we want you to lime. That's calcium carbonate. Okay, if you've got a high pH soil, you might consider using elemental sulfur, improving your drainage, doing some other things. Gypsum could help in a high pH situation, but it's not the product that's actually going to lower your high pH soil and get that back down to a 7. So those are probably the biggest misconceptions there are about gypsum out there. So let's talk about what gypsum actually can do for your soil. The first thing I look at is that calcium piece. As Darren said, we need lots of calcium. Calcium may be the most important nutrient for your soil, not necessarily for the crop, but for your soil. It really helps to build your soil, and here's how it does this. Calcium is a very big molecule, and if you have a bunch of these big molecules out there, then it gives more pore space in your soil, gives roots more room to grow, gives water more room to move through, and it's also good for a lot of your soil life, the worms and the beneficial bacteria and fungi. Calcium is a tremendously important thing. Typically in a base saturation percentage, we're looking for 65 to 80% to be calcium. That's a very high number. It's number 1 on our list on the base saturation test. So we need lots of it out there, and if you don't have enough calcium, adding gypsum is one of the ways you can get that extra calcium.
Well, the other thing that we see with calcium is people look at soil tests and say, wow, I have lots of parts per million of calcium. My soil test says I'm very high in calcium, but some of that calcium is just not coming available for your crop. And available calcium is really the key here. So don't just look at your soil test and say, well, I've got lots of calcium out there. I can't possibly need any more. You may need some calcium, and you really need to look at plant tissue analysis and other things about how your crop is growing to determine what's going on, because what we see across the country, especially in high pH soils where we've got high calcium, we see a lot of that calcium being tied up and not really available and getting into our crop as our crop needs it, and our crop can suffer if we don't have that.
I want to give you two main reasons why you've got to have plenty of sulfur in your soil. Number one, obviously your crop needs it, and your crop probably needs it in a lot higher dosage than you've ever realized. You used to get lots of free sulfur out of the air from air pollution. Unfortunately, we now have clean air in the country. So because of this clean air, we're not getting all that free fertilizer. But hey, there's the other side of it too. Let's keep in mind that there's a lot less manure spread on a lot of fields. I mean, growing up, everybody had livestock. Well, today, livestock is a lot more concentrated to fewer individuals.
It's a lot more special. It's like everything else. Things have gotten specialized, where if you want to be great at livestock production, you're probably specializing in that. If you want to be great at crop production, you're probably specializing in that. It's very uncommon to see guys who are great at both aspects in farming.
The other thing is, for a lot of fertilizers 20, 30 years ago, we used to find a little bit of sulfur in there. Even the MAP we used to buy, mainly phosphorus, 1050O or 1152O, that used to have up to 6% sulfur in there. So we were adding sulfur all the time. Well, we just don't have that. We don't have as much sulfur in our fertilizers, as much sulfur in our crop protection products, as much sulfur coming from the air. We're not putting manure on as much. So there are a lot of reasons why we're not getting so much sulfur. So you need it as a nutrient. The other reason why you may need it is to lower some of the either bad or excessive things that are in your soil. So if you want to lower excess magnesium, if you want to lower excess sodium, get more sulfur out there. That sulfate combined with the magnesium or combined with the sodium to form a salt. Once they convert to salts, now they're leachable, and now they can flush through your system, through your soil, as long as you have good drainage.
All right, there was the key. You have to have good drainage to get things to flush out. So many times when we've got a problem area, and whether you refuse to do drainage or you just can't get approval in that certain spot of the field, guys will look for the easy fix. What can I do? Can I do some deep tillage and put some gypsum over the top? Hey, those two things can help, but they're really band-aids. You really do need that drainage in order to get it going. The other thing that I see with calcium sulfate or gypsum, when applied on the soil surface and just left on the soil surface to work down through the soil, we do see better infiltration of water.
There are many great benefits to gypsum. We just encourage you, if you've never used some gypsum before, start on your farm, at least on a few acres, but look first at your soil test. You've got to understand what gypsum will do and what it will not do. Again, it's not the pH changer, but what it is it allows you to build up your soil's calcium levels, to build up your soil's sulfur levels, and there are many great benefits of doing those things.
Well, one thing that gypsum can't do is weed control, and you may need that if you have our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop this week's weed later in the show.
This year's projected U.S. soybean yield will lose over $500 million per point in shrink. Eliminate shrink in your bin. Store grain without lowering moisture content with the AgriDry Bullseye Temperature and Moisture Controller. The Bullseye monitors air temperature and relative humidity, allowing your fans to utilize the weather's natural condition to maintain your grain at market moisture. Fan run times drastically decrease along with the cost of over-drying. Eliminate shrink today. Call now.
Take a look inside any rotary combine, and you'll find single rotor technology. Technology Case IH introduced over 35 years ago with the axial flow combine. But unless it gives you more bells and whistles with fewer belts and chains, more power using less fuel, it's not an axial flow. Because while the heart of every rotary combine beats red, only Case IH gives you the power to do more.
When we use agriculture liquid, we'll usually end up with 2.7 to 3 pounds of gain per animal a day. We had 100 head out on a pasture this last fall that gained at 2.7. You know, they made about $450. We usually get about a 10-day start. It's ready 10 days early, and we're grazing and they're waiting and we're gaining.
How will you secure your farm for the future? The Quasar Chopping Cornhead from Capello USA will help. Our design is focused on efficiency, longevity, and reducing harvest loss, making the Quasar the corn harvest solution to bring your farm forward. With hundreds of units ready for immediate delivery, secure your farm's future today. Do it for your farm, do it for them. Order now. Capello USA. Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grit sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
One of the most common questions Darren and I get each fall is, how do I better manage my nitrogen, because I want to spend less and I want to make sure that I have plenty of nitrogen available for the next crop, but how much can I put on? I mean, the questions just start.
Well, it certainly varies depending on what part of the country you're in. When we're in the northern part of the country, we know the ground is going to be frozen and rock hard for the next 6 months. Well, okay, there's not much concern. You can put nitrogen out there. It's not going anywhere because
Right.
the ground's going to be frozen.
Right.
If we were in the south and we didn't get that freeze, well, that'd be a whole different deal. And the other thing is soil type. When we've got very light sandy soils, low organic matter soils, it's a whole different deal than when you've got heavy soils. And much of our subsoil where we farm, not all fields, but many fields, we've got a heavy clay subsoil. So we're pretty happy about that, you know, nitrogen really isn't going to get away very far for us, but where you've got sand, it may be a different concern.
All right,
as
let's
well.
give you very specific things you can deal with. All right, here are the two exact numbers you've got to look at. Number one, cation exchange capacity. You have to test your soil for this. If you're not getting that test, get it. What we're looking for here is take your cation exchange capacity number times 10. Now, this is not an exact number, and there will be people out there who will say, oh, that number's not right.
And
this
what's
is going
the
to get you
science
close.
behind the exact 10? Is it really 9.5 or 10.5?
It's going to get you a real close ballpark. Okay, so if you've got a cation exchange capacity number of 15, multiply times 10, we're telling you, do not exceed 150 pounds. If your soil already has 30 pounds in there, that means don't exceed 120 pounds for an application rate. That's the first thing you got to know. The second thing you have to know is, what's your soil temperature? If your soil temperature is 70 degrees, we would not advise you putting nitrogen out yet. If your soil temperature is 50 and dropping, probably getting about the time to do it, okay? So what we're really looking for, because everybody says 50, what we really want is 32. Because at 32, nothing's happening, everything's froze, it's done, it's solid, it's locked in. And by the way, don't apply nitrogen over the top of soil that is 32 degrees or less. The ground's frozen. What do you think's going to happen with that nitrogen? It can't go in, so where's it going to go when water starts moving early in the spring? It's going to run off. That's not a good thing. So you've got to be in that range of 32 to 50 degrees, get that nitrogen down in the soil, then we're in good shape.
All right, I've got a question for you, Brand. So why do any nitrogen at all in the fall? Why not save it for the spring?
Yep, because you get your work done, number one. And a lot of times in the spring, what we want to do as soon as that ground is possibly fit, and sometimes even before, we're going. So let me give you an example off our own farm. We really like anhydrous in the fall, in certain situations, in certain field types where we can plant early in the spring. But the flip side is we have fields where we don't want to put anhydrous on in the fall. For example, we have some ground that may flood out in the spring. We have some ground that may go to a different crop if the weather isn't just right. So on those fields, yeah, we're not putting fall nitrogen out. You just have to be very selective about what you're doing, not only with the rate, but where you're applying this fall nitrogen, because we don't want to lose it.
All right, let's sum this thing up. So fall nitrogen application now is a good time as the soil temperatures start cooling down to 50 degrees and falling. We'd prefer that to be colder. That's going to give you more of a benefit. We look at heavier soils and soils that we can get into early as opportunities for putting on fall nitrogen.
And then the other very important thing, use a nitrogen stabilizer. I don't care if we're talking manure, we're talking anhydrous, urea, liquid 28%, use a stabilizer. It does two things for you. It helps prevent the nitrogen loss, and it helps keep the nitrogen in the ammonium form that your plant wants. It can use nitrate, but it wants ammonium because it'll take nitrate, convert it back to ammonium. Keep it in the ammonium form in the first place, it'll gain you just a little bit more yield.
Managing fertility is important, so is weed control. We'll show you how to stop our weed of the week coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Farming isn't just in the land, it's in you. Take control of weeds like never before. Enlist builds on the Roundup Ready system, combining proven control of a new 2,4-D and glyphosate in Enlist Duo herbicide. Protect what matters without changing the way you farm. Talk to your seed or crop protection supplier today.
Our weed of the week is Honeyvine Milkweed.
Well, it certainly has the milk in it, and on the leaves you see the prominent white veins, but Honeyvine Milkweed is really a viney weed. It's a perennial just like other milkweeds that we see out there, and controlling it is really a challenge because you've got that root system of a perennial.
Okay, so what are you going to do? Because unless you're going with a real high rate of Roundup, maybe beyond what you could spray on a Roundup Ready soybean or a Roundup Ready corn plant, unless you're doing that, there aren't a lot of real great options.
No, there aren't too many options. And the big thing with Honeyvine Milkweed that we've seen is, the spring applications of Roundup in crop, it's just not enough. We're better off with that super high rate of Roundup, the maximum labeled rate, doing that in a burn down, not doing any tillage in those areas of the field where you've got Honeyvine Milkweed so you can keep that root system intact. That's your best shot. Using some penetrating surfactants, perhaps a crop oil or a methylated seed oil with the Roundup, that could help get it in there quicker to get a lethal dose to all those growing points. The other thing that we've seen post-emerge in corn, we've had some luck mixing something like Status in with one of the HPPDs, like a Callisto, Loudus Impact, or Armazon. Combining the two has helped. Either one alone has just been okay. Combining the two together is actually almost what I would consider control. It's not great, but it's way better than anything else that we've seen. In soybeans, there really isn't much. Use the high rate of Roundup, the high rate of Liberty, those kind of things can do a nice job with mainly top growth control. You can also use the diphenyl ether type products, the real burners like a Cobra or a Flex Star, and see some suppression.
The big thing is hit it twice or maybe even 3 times. So if you're getting Roundup a couple, 3 times, or if you're getting, let's say, a dicamba once or twice, you're getting a pre like a Sharpen or a Valor Authority or something, Metribuzin, burn it down, then hit it again, keep hitting it, just keep after it, and then typically you can get this thing under control.
That's all time for this week's weed, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots from Monsanto Bioegg is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more, and is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Get Quick Roots today.
There are no marks of conflict lining this landscape. No echoes of economic hardship. Just the unmistakable murmur of Mother Nature's hand. In the perennial quest to outperform, ensure your crop gets the nutrients it craves with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Nothing helps protect your investment more, so you can grow confidently no matter what comes your way. Avail. Hold your ground.
For lower costs, higher production, Mantico Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Avoid costly downtime with Twister's ease of maintenance. Its unique Coulter suspension allows it to follow the contour of the field yet remain forgiving in rocks. Our hydraulically adjustable Coulter angles mean you never leave the cab, making residue management easier, more efficient. Spring or fall, the Mantico Twister is the new leader. Check with your local dealer or visit manticoagri.com.
We have a school and a church nearby. I actually go to the classroom to educate the students about what's going on here on my farm. The system that I have, I tie everything together. No-till, cover crops. We applied AgriLiquid in furrow with our soybeans this year. It seemed like they jumped out of the soil, even though we had the record rainfall. I really feel that I'm feeding my plant. on a consistent year-round basis throughout the growing season.
Dirty work pays. That is if your dirty work includes a Soil Max Gold Digger tile plow. Soil Max tile plows feature zero deflection technology. With the only tile plow factory paired with Ag Leader's IntelliSlope control system, you eliminate the need for grade calculations and lasers. So make your next investment in a Soil Max Gold Digger. Better yield, longer planting and harvest windows, better water management is all yours with Soil Max. Visit soilmax.com.
Presenting the new 2016 Apache sprayer. If you could save money and increase yield, why wait? Delaying change can cost you money.
It's phenomenal the return of investment it brings back. In my mind, a sprayer is the biggest return of investment you can bring back.
Apache owners apply in half the time for full type, apply when they want versus custom, and spend less than hydrostat owners, not to mention less weight on their crops. Go ahead and compare. We hope you do. Visit etsprayers.com to locate a dealer and how to save with an Apache. Apache, now more than ever.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
Down corn is tough to harvest, but what do you do after harvest to clean things up? I'll discuss in today's Iron Talk. It's bad enough that some of your corn went down. You lost yield, maybe a lot, and you had to take quite a bit of time to get it out of the field. You also may have had to even buy or borrow extra equipment. Well, once harvest is done, your nightmare unfortunately may not be over. Now you've got to prep that field for the next crop. So here are a few observations from down corn this fall and in the past. Long stalks laying every which way are a challenge for many types of operations. In our strip till, we even had a little challenge in fields where the tops fell off the corn and dealing with those longer pieces compared to where our chopping head had everything sized up to just a few inches long. Coulter carts of various kinds or vertical tillage can do a nice job sizing up that residue so it flows through your next machine much better. Whether it's a true tandem 335 VT case machine, a quick till, or the individual coulters of a Salford, in my opinion, it's a valuable pass through the field. Then you're free to follow up with strip till, no-till, or conventional till, depending on your situation. Now, if stalk rot was the culprit, and it was in many cases this year, rotating away from corn next year is a good strategy. We saw stalk rots especially bad in areas that had excessive spring moisture, insufficient drainage tile, and corn rootworm feeding, which was a bigger deal in 2015 than it's getting credit for. Adding a fungicide like xanthion and furrow really helped with the disease portion, and you may need to add some insecticide in next year too, because we expect we'll see more corn rootworms once again. In some cases, the planting population was also too high for the fertility levels in the field. So make adjustments to your fertility program this fall and next spring, and adjust your planting populations as well next year to avoid a similar fate. Focus on potassium, manganese, and copper as the nutrients that are key to better standability. Down corn is a bad thing, but you probably need to do some vertical tillage after harvest to try to clean things up. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
On your farm, you need speed and year-round effectiveness in your tillage program. The Quick Till from Norwood Sales allows you to move quickly through your fields, maximizing time and improving yield. Constructed of heavy-duty materials, the Quick Till is ideal for both spring and fall applications, from preparing a healthy seedbed early in the season to breaking up corn residue after harvest. For more information about how a Quick Till can improve fields on your farm, call Norwood Sales today.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but before we go, we want to invite you to tune into the Ag PhD radio show. You'll find us at 2 p.m. Central on Sirius XM 147 each weekday.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Can you increase your field's topsoil layer by reducing tillage, planting high residue crops, utilizing cover crops, and adding manure to the soil? Topsoil can be rebuilt. For more information, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.